always put myself last, which is fine. But it just, seeing the people I'm working with, who are my partners, seeing them go from getting financial success, emotional success, building their families, which I'm in the process of doing right now, seeing them do that while we're building a business and not leave and feeling respected and growing into leaders, like that drives me. And it's a weird thing to say. It sounds like I'm trying to act like I'm the creator of all this, and I'm not. I'm working side by side with them, but being there for them and making sure that, at the end of the day, they don't feel like they've devoted everything to this company and we won, and they're like, all right, what do I do next? That there's gonna be a future for them in and outside the gym. That's my biggest responsibility.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today has built his life around the boxing business as an undefeated 16-0 pro boxer, business coach, and entrepreneur. Growing up immersed in the world of boxing, he was shaped by the expertise of his father and many world-class legendary coaches. He carries a deep belief in the transformative power of boxing because of the proven impact that boxing training has on one's mental, physical, and emotional health. As well as an athlete, boxing trainer, and coach, he's the son of a legendary businessman and former two-time heavyweight world champion, Mr. George Foreman Sr., managing his father's business for 7 years. After moving on from a previous venture and one of the first boxing boutique brands, EverybodyFights, he's now the founder and CEO of Craft Boxing. Today he shares how his father helped build his entrepreneurial mindset, the inspiration and building behind Craft Boxing's success, and the secrets to creating a company culture and a committed community. So please welcome the CEO and founder of Craft Boxing, Mr. George Foreman III.
Mr. Foreman.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for inviting me down.
Thanks for coming, man.
It's a hell of a location that you've got here. You must be quite proud.
Yeah, I'm proud of, anything I can, get my hands dirty on. I'm always proud of it.
Boxing's changing quite a bit. I was looking at your Instagram when I was preparing for this the other day, and I see you're a little bit of a Jake Paul fan.
I'm a big Jake Paul fan, man. Him and his brother, they're bringing so much good energy to the sport. New eyeballs. They're not, a lot of people have things to say from the boxing industry about them taking opportunities from other fighters, and it's not real boxing, and it's certain. They say all that, but the reality is, while boxing fans are watching them, the majority and how they're really building their own industry is getting non-boxing fans to watch boxing. And if you look at the undercard of their fights, these are really great fighters that are getting a platform that they may not have had for 2 or 3 years. They're investing in the careers of fighters. They're advocating for fighters to make more money. I could go on and on, but the most important thing is they're bringing their fan base into boxing, their eyeballs into boxing, and for anyone to complain about that, they needed talking to.
How does the traditional boxing scene, what does your dad think about that? What's his views on it?
My dad, he made me sit down and read books early on about the boxing industry. Books like Only the Ring Was Square, watching movies like On the Waterfront. But the point was, boxing is born out of the circus. First, it was, there was Madison Square Garden. Professional boxing, as we know it in the United States, started in Madison Square Garden. The circus was failing. They brought wrestling. Relatives from the McMahon family were part of that. And then there was another promoter that brought boxing. And boxing was one of the elements that saved Madison Square Garden, which used to be not where it's at now, from going under. But it was all about, we need this great champion who's unbeatable, right? And everybody wants to see him. And then we have this guy that might beat him, right? And they create these impossible situations, and the champion always wins. And the fights were not fixed, but kind of like positioned for the guy to win, because you got to have the champion. You invest all this time in the champion. We got to get at least 10 or 15 fights out of him. And then when the champion's about to retire, we get the new guy that he's young, he's got a good attitude, he plays the piano, he's a personality, he can box a little bit. And then we run around and have him fight and beat everybody up, have him beat King Kong, have him beat Pee Wee Herman or whatever. And then he fights the guy on his way out. He wins, we transfer that fan base to the new guy, and now we have a guy to go around and sell peanuts and, potato chips and popcorn. That was the whole thing. And then eventually skill worked its way into the sport more and more and more. Betting worked its way into the sport more and more and more. And now it's become we've lost some of the circus act. The reason Muhammad Ali would go on with his antics is because he studied guys like, I think he was called Pretty Boy George. There was a wrestler, 40s, 50s, 60s, that would get really mad if you mess up his hair. He'd lose it. It's like, oh, I'm going to get you now. He studied him. The great fighters, my dad, Frazier, they would always show some other talent they had, poetry or something, because they studied these guys from the circus, and they knew it wasn't just enough to be a great fighter. You had to capture the imaginations of people, show them something different, and also show them, I'm a human, I come from where you come from, maybe you could do this too. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, they do it all.
Where do you think they're going to go next? Because I guess they've created something that's quite unique. They've taken world-class fighters, you know, going up against some of the UFC people, and I guess they've jumped up without necessarily having to work their way up as a traditional boxer would be. They've got to a quite a high level. Where do you think they go next? Because I guess there's only so many of these sort of UFC people that they're going to get, but do they then sort of integrate into the traditional boxing world, or do they create this new space that's probably not been there before? How are you?
I think what's going to happen, and the people that know them and speak to them, and I have friends that are friends with them, they say that these guys want to be respected as real athletes. Now, Logan Paul was the first, right? And he was a little bit ahead of his brother. He's now transitioned out of boxing. He got a chance to fight the greatest fighter of all time. Yeah. Floyd Mayweather. It's a little bit bigger than them, but it's still cool. And now he's just gone into wrestling. He went to the pinnacle of what we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Entertaining people, capturing the hearts and their imaginations. So I think my gut is Logan's going to continue to focus on the entertainment side of it. Because he's already got the T-shirt of, I'm a real boxer, right? I've had a real boxing experience. Forget who he fought in the ring. He trained, he dedicated himself. He took his shirt off in front of 20,000 people, millions of people on pay-per-view. That's stressful, and you've never done it before. He did that. Jake, same thing. They don't want to fight on celebrity boxing cards. They want to fight on Showtime with a real commission. They want to fight with the real gloves. They want to be respected as real fighters. Now, you tell me one fighter that was great that didn't dedicate themselves for at least 7 to 8 years to get to the top level. Tell me one, and I'll shut up. Jake's been at it for 3 or 4 years, right? Completely dedicated to the craft. He's learned how to show up and be the main event. He's learned how to train for 6 to 8 weeks. He fights real professional champion-level fighters in training camp all the time. And he's focused on one thing. So if you look at the amount of hours he's dedicated to the sport versus the amount of hours that some of these real boxers have dedicated to the sport, he's getting close to being at about the same level of experience of training and sparring, but not yet fighting. He only has 4 or 5 fights. So the point is, at some point, he's going to tip over, and he's going to start being in the conversation and being able to beat some of these so-called real fighters, right? And I have a lot of respect for boxers that are real fighters, but you got to look at what this guy is doing. If you look at the hours, you know, they say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. Like, he's probably a quarter of the way there. And I think he's going to be respected as a real boxer at some point if he keeps on going. So these little fights he's doing, fighting guys that have way more experience than him, maybe out of shape, maybe a little bit older, whatever, way more experience, that are giving him a good challenge, that's his amateur career. 20 amateur fights. He's got that now. Now, to me, I look at him as a guy who's a highly touted amateur that's now gone pro, and now he's got to have about 7 or 8 fights that challenge him, let us get to see him under pressure, slightly younger guys, and I think about 6 or 7, 8 more fights. You got to look at him just like any other top prospect, and if he wins a belt, you got to look at him as a real pro. I believe that if he wants to commit to it. And he's doing it the right way. He's making sure I'm getting reps on making weight. I'm getting reps on, once again, showing up and fighting in front of the whole world. I'm getting reps on people pulling out on me right before the fight's about to happen. What that does to your head. I'm getting all those reps, and in the gym, I'm developing myself. 2 or 3 years from now, you gotta respect him just like any other boxer. And that'll be about 7, 8 years. There you go.
Well, it's good to see certainly a renewed energy and excitement, because it's not, when I was a kid, it was the thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it definitely seems to have sort of, although it's there, it's just not got that same kind of excitement. And I guess it's strange that over the last, I don't know, probably 5 or so years, the boxing fitness part, which is sort of where, you know, the business that you're in now, seems to have gained a lot of popularity. You know, there's like Rumble, Mayweather's got it involved, Fight Camp, Title, there's a number of them. What do you think has sort of driven this? Because I know I found something on your website where you said, look, authentic boxing training is not a trend, but it's a lifestyle. So explain that a little bit, because in the fitness industry is very, I won't say gimmicky, but you'll get these trends and they'll come and they'll go. But boxing's sort of been around for a long time. So tell us a little bit about why you feel it's something that's going to be here for quite a while.
So, number one, the reason I think boxing is going to be here for quite a while is it's been here for quite a while. It's not going anywhere. There have been ups and downs. It was the biggest sport in the world in the 1930s, rivaling soccer, probably bigger, 40s. Baseball has come, basketball has come. But if you look at the sporting events that draw the most amount of money for the players to make in one night, boxing still is right there when everything comes together. Two entertaining fighters with a great fight, a great matchup, right? So I number one, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think boxing historically, I know I sound like a geek, check the facts, does better in recessions, right? When things are down, when people, when everybody's morale is low because maybe it's the economy, maybe it's politics, maybe it's a war or whatever, boxing always gets a spike. Not sure why. We see in the Romans, in the days of the Romans, when things were down, they said, hey, we have to have the gladiators, right? There's something there, and I can't explain it, but it exists. 1934, Joe Louis netted, I don't know if he put it all in his pocket, $400,000. 1934. It's a lot of money right now. And that was the Great Depression. And so, long story short, I think number one, hard times, births, people need something that inspires them to fight, right? And there's nothing that inspires you to fight more than boxing. Two hands. And number two, everybody can relate to putting your hands up and throwing punches. We can't all relate to grappling, right?
Yeah.
But I think if we love grappling, if we love MMA, and we want to dip our toe, we'll start with boxing. And some of us will go into MMA, into jiu-jitsu, but a lot of people will stay with their hands up because they can just beat up the bag and not have to wrestle somebody. That's always going to be the case, and that's one of the reasons I think boxing fitness has benefited tremendously from UFC. Thank God for them, right? Because it's about eyeballs to fight sports. So as long as UFC continues to grow, boxing fitness will grow. As long as the economy is jumping up and down and people are making comebacks, boxing is going to be hot. And then last but not least, I think what's happening in the fitness industry, which is special, is boxing fitness is going from being kind of an oddity or kind of a taboo idea. People are no longer asking, am I going to get hit when I come and do a boxing fitness session? To you have cycling, you have yoga, where's your boxing program? And I think we have about 2 more years, and I've been saying this for a long time, before boxing is going to be considered a modality that every gym needs to invest in the same way you invest in a treadmill. I think we're headed there, and I think at that point we'll have 3 or 4 years where boxing fitness is at its peak. It's coming, and those are the drivers, I think, of that success. And then last but not least, I forgot to mention, I have more than ever seen so many requests from youngsters, parents saying, I have a 10 or 13-year-old or whatever it is, they want to box. Men, women, across all genders, etc. Youngsters are very interested in boxing. I think the Paul brothers and the social media stars that are boxing are a big driver of it. But I also think with all the things we're seeing on TV, none of us feel safe anymore. More and more people are reaching out and saying, I want to learn how to defend myself. Forget the fitness part. We don't feel safe. So I think boxing is a great start for people to learn self-defense, build confidence, and walk around not feeling like they're going to be attacked and having the confidence that they can do something if they are attacked. And that goes from 7 years old to 70 years old. It's a common trend. So I think all these things are driving, all these roads are leading to boxing fitness, what I call, in my opinion, boxing is fitness, by the way. And the last thing I'll say on that, because I've said that 3 times, is that I also think if you watch closely, you're going to see boxing as a beachhead for people to get back into training themselves, getting people back into running, getting people back into squatting, lunging, all of those things because they want to be a better boxer. Because at the end of this squatting, lunging, core, whatever, they're mastering a skill that they can be proud of. Few people want to say, I want to be the best at a squat jump, or I want to be the best at a reverse lunge. But lots of people want to say, hey, look, I can shadow box for 3 minutes and not get tired. I can throw all these punches, and I'm actually really good. You should come check me out. And that connection between fitness, being motivated to get in shape, because I'm learning a skill that I can be proud of, is going to become stronger and stronger.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged, and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
You've been in this space, probably one of the original ones with your previous venture, Everybody Fights.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of the lessons that you got from, I guess, probably being one of the relatively first movers, certainly in this sort of style of boutique fitness? What are some of the things you've learned from that? And also probably what are some of the things that people that get into business, into the boxing fitness business, what are some of the mistakes that you see people making based on your past experience?
Yeah. I think number one, I think my experience with Everybody Fights was tremendous, and I learned so much, and I got to see so many people, almost 170,000 people, and a lot of them we were their first boxing experience. That made me feel really good. The lessons I learned: number one, boxing should be for everybody, right? But the message isn't, come on, everybody, you can do this. This may not be for everybody. I need you to want to get over the hump and challenge yourself to do something you're afraid of. I want you to feel a little nervous, and I want you to get over the other side of it and say, wow, I did it, right? And I think taking that away from boxing, and I suggest this to anyone who wants to launch a program, don't try to water it down. Say, this is boxing training. That's what it is. You're not going to get hit. You'd have to beg to spar and get hit, right? We don't do that here. But the training, all the preparation before you enter the ring, it's legit. I think you can say that and people want to do it. The same way people want to do CrossFit and say, I do CrossFit. They don't want to say, I do a softer version of CrossFit. They'll do it, but they don't want to call their mom and say, I'm doing a softer version of CrossFit. They want to say, I'm doing boxing training. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a lesson. And we did well. We did really good, and it continues to do well. But in the future, I'm promoting boxing training. I'm not promoting boxing for fitness.
And is that what the previous one was? Was it a bit more boxing for fitness?
As much as we could. We wanted to say we teach authentic, but we also wanted to soften it a little bit. And it was also the time to do that, right? We were early. So I think that would be number one. Number two, treating the trainer as the client. They're the most important thing. If you can retain the client, if you focus more on retaining your trainers, it's not hard. It's not easy to do. It's actually really hard to retain trainers. And you have to listen to them. You have to be sensitive. You have to know they're going to have ups and downs. They're going to get tired. But if you focus on them as a client, it's way easier to retain the people that come to your gym. Lastly, I would say that once we focus on the trainer as a client, how do we spend more time focusing on the people that are in our gym right now? Not how many new people can we come to the gym? How can we automate the funnel? Like they do this and they get a text message, then they get an email, and then they did this and they do their first class. That's important, but we shouldn't be spending 85% of our time focusing on new people. We should be spending 85% of our time on what we have, maybe 95%, taking our time and setting up a great funnel, right? Get it going, but we shouldn't be grading ourselves on the new member experience, right? We should be grading ourselves on the experience for the people who show up every day, the people who came to you first, the early adopters, and just focusing on that. I think that's enough. And I think there's not enough focus on retention. And that was my mistake because I was so focused on grow, open more gyms. I forgot about the team, and I forgot about the people that were there with me, rocking with me since day one.
What did you learn in terms of entrepreneurship? Like your father was and is a great entrepreneur. Was there lessons that you learned from him that I guess sunk in differently once you'd been through the process? Like, was it a case of, right, okay, in theory, I've watched and I've learned, because you were quite involved in his business in the early days, but when you actually sort of came and did it yourself, did you get a slightly different perspective on what it was like to be a young entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I think what I learned a lot working for my dad. that I was able to use, and I didn't appreciate it. Being in a family business, until I started to look up 3 or 4 years, and I would have frustrations with my team, especially some of the ones that worked with me on the corporate side. Why isn't this obvious to you? Are you kidding me? Come on. Over and over, I do the same thing expecting a different result, and I didn't realize I was getting a master's, maybe a PhD in certain things, whether it be PR, how to compose yourself, how to read a contract, understanding a balance sheet, an income statement, a cash flow statement, all these things I took for granted because I had no choice but to learn to do them. It was actually something I hated, right? And so those are great talents and skills that helped me grow. Number 2, he taught me how to navigate not getting sued. He would talk about it all the time. The lawsuit, be careful, make sure you put 25% for insurance, 25% for this, put that in your pocket, spend the other pocket. He would tell me all these things, and I listened, but I didn't understand how important it was, because what you find is being in business exposes you. Just by virtue of being in business, and if you think somebody is going to come after you for something that you didn't do multiple times, you're crazy. Otherwise, law firms wouldn't be in business if they were just focused on going after people who actually did something, right? In business, I'm talking about. So I think that was something I wish I had listened to a little bit more, because I wouldn't have had heartburn, right? And then the last thing is what I should have paid attention to more is his response to conflict. And it's important. I've always felt like, how people respond to conflict is such an opportunity for growth. But how to be cool under destructive pressure, destructive conflict. Someone trying to destroy you for the sake of destroying you for no other reason, not monetary gain, because then you could just write a check. Not for media or what the young people say, clout, because then you can just back off and say, I'm sorry. Sometimes people would rather than you win, just destroy everything. And I don't know how to respond to that. And I'm learning. And then lastly, just putting yourself to the side and in that scenario, trying to say you're not always going to agree with people, but if you invest in relationships with people, you can get through situations like that, So long story short, I think paying a little bit better attention to because sometimes I would see him take the low road. I'm like, yo, go get them. No, we can win. He'd be like,
Picking his battles. Picking his
battles. And then I realized, looking back, we only have so much time on this earth. Time, energy, your bandwidth for stress, those are way more important resources than cash. You can get cash back.
Yeah. And that's an interesting sort of connection to my next question. So I understand your father almost went bankrupt. He owned a ton of property, ranches and everything, and then there was a day where he had to go back into the ring again. And tell us a little bit about that story, and I suppose how has that, it must have been quite a big thing for you as his son to watch that. How has that shaped what you do now, if at all?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson that I can reflect on from that, the most important lesson, there's multiple lessons that I'll talk about, but the one that comes to mind right away is good things don't last forever, right? No matter how good they are, they do not last forever, but good people do. Good people can last forever, but you have to remain a good person, right? And then maybe you'll have better times, right? But you have to believe in that. Your lawyers are not going to tell you that. Your accountants are not going to tell you that. Your wife's not going to tell you that. Your friends, your brothers, sisters, cousins, they're not going to have that attitude. You have to secretly hide and say, I'm a good person. I believe in what I'm doing. The good times are coming back, but they're not supposed to last forever, And sure enough for him, he had his days in the 70s and had to make his comeback. And
what actually happened? How bad did it get? Did he actually lose everything?
Yes. So it started off with divorces. That can knock you down a time or two in terms of financially. Number 2, I think it was the late 70s or early 80s. He just got his money stolen. He had a guy that managed his money. One situation was, sorry, George, this is true. We invested in chicken ranches in Africa. Didn't work out. $2 million down the drain, a big number like that. Another situation was someone just took his money, just made a withdrawal, right? And I think maybe it signed a power of attorney or something like that. I have no clue. But they just said it's gone, and they chased him down, never got the money back. Another scenario, his bodyguard and head of security liquidated everything in his house in Livermore, California, where he had all his championship belts, his gold medal, like fur, like everywhere, like all his jewelry, everything, like all his like physical assets that had real value, just sold it all, like posted up and just ran an estate sale. And this is like, late 70s, like, what do you do? Never found him. And he found him and he kissed him. And then, but the good thing is he never mortgaged anything, so he just had his assets. He had a little bit of land left and all that. And finally, around 1986 or 7, he's like 330 pounds. I think there's 8 of us at the time, maybe 7. And he's like, I'm going back to boxing. And I barely remember this at age, given the age I was, but my sister said the speech was, he sat us down and said, I'm going back to boxing. I'm going to be world champion, manifest. I'm going to always come home when I'm done. I'm going to be faithful, right? And he said things like this: I'm going to be a good man. I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not going to be running around partying and be, running around with people in Hollywood. This is a job, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to take care of you guys. But he made the speech, and he put himself out there. How bad did it get? Everything was leveraged, and everything was coming due. And I believe he told me the number was, I believe he said he had about 300, could have been 200K of cash or whatever, burning cash every month. Because remember, he doesn't have a job. And he had way more debt than he had cash. And when they called on it, that was going to be gone. And we were just going to be broke. That's the way he explained it. And so, or he would lose all the land that we lived on. So we either lose the house or they take the cash. Long story short, we were going to be broke and out. And so he had to go back to boxing. That's how bad it got.
And he did become champion, is that?
And at the time, 8 kids with another on the way and so on and so forth. And yes, he did. He became champion and he started from scratch.
Wow. That's an impressive comeback. So craft boxing, that's the new, how did you come up with the name?
Small batch boxing. Most people think it's because we call boxing like a craft, it's like, and it is that's part of it. But it started with me and my wife were actually sitting around looking at like companies that we liked, and we love like craft pizza, right? And I like pizza because in quarantine, what did you have to do? We just eat all day. We'd like make our own pizzas and like look at some of the companies, and then of course there's other like there's like companies that make craft wine and craft beer and craft this, and like I don't drink beer, but the point is small batch. I don't care about masses. I don't care about millions of people consuming this. I just care about one at a time. Now, it'd be great if millions of people would consume it, but not at the expense of watering down the product or changing the product or limiting the efficacy of it or whatever. And so that's how it started. And it actually started, we were going to do this, a podcast, and every time we had a guest on, we were going to do a custom glove, make like 20 of them, and allow people to buy them and donate a portion of the proceeds to charity. And we were going to take something they said in the podcast, like, damn it, I never gave up, or something, and just write it there. And it could be somebody like, my dream guest was what's his name? Lewis Hamilton, the driver.
Okay, yeah.
To see like, what does he tell himself when he, and put that on the glove. And we don't keep the money, he does and charity does, but it was a great way to build the brand for the podcast. That was the original idea. And then me, I love to teach boxing. So like one thing led to another. But we held true to say, how do we not water down the process? And we said, let's partner with existing gym operators who already have space. So we're not focused on construction, even though we know how to do it. We're not focused on like opening and closing the doors across 100 facilities. We're focusing on the relationship with the trainer, making sure they're educated, that they care about being there, that they care about wearing craft on their chest. Because if we know we have great trainers, it's impossible to have a bad experience with boxing, because all you need is maybe gloves, maybe mitts. You can even just teach somebody to box with shadow boxing. So I figured if we focus on that, that was our version of small batch. Mm-hmm. One person at a time, train one great trainer. If you develop a great trainer, they're not going to wake up 10 years from now and suck, right? They'll never forget the skills. And if you invest in good people, they're always going to be great motivators. They may be in a great facility. They may be outdoors. They may be in a park. Ali said you could train in a phone booth, but the product is still pure. And so that's craft boxing. How do we create a network of outstanding trainers? If we can do it in a great craft boxing gym, that's cool. But we don't need a gym. We need a motivator who cares about the technique.
Right. So what took you from that idea of doing podcasts in a ring to where you've got this, I guess, multi-million-dollar facility here in Calabasas?
I think, I looked at my dad. You brought up his comeback. One of the way he made his comeback, and he made me pay attention a lot when he trained me to this, he used to teach me the business. He went to places that, what I would call sports and entertainment deserts, right? Places that barely had a college, I don't even know if junior colleges were a thing back then. Definitely didn't have a sports team or even a semi-pro team. Places where there's nothing to do, but the stoplight's broken and let's talk about it, right? Maybe a Dairy Queen, maybe a McDonald's, and if there's a Walmart, we're writing home. Find those places, but maybe they had an armory, maybe they had a basketball gymnasium for the high school. Let's go fight there. Because when we go there, they're gonna pay attention. And they have the same TV channels. They have ABC, NBC, USA at the time. And number two, any sports writers that are there, any writers that are there, they're gonna sit there with you, write down everything you say, and the article's gonna be this long. Well, let's go to 20 or 30 of those places. And he did that, made no money, but those people were his fans. Just like Logan Paul, Jake Paul bringing their fans, those people were his fans. And they appreciated it, right? And lastly, there's no competition, right? So he rounded up all these people, and then he promoted himself, didn't sign with anyone, and then USA would say, hey, George, here's, $100,000 to fight. Be like, cool, 1 fight deal, no contract. And they're like, you sure we can sign you to a 3-fight deal and fight this guy? No, that's it. Breaks all the records. Now, could he got paid a lot more money for breaking all the records? Yes, but he wanted the power and control over his career. There's, okay, cool, you won, let's do another fight. And da-da-da-da. He's, no, I'm going back to the hitching post. I'm going back to the backwoods of Louisiana. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, George, cool. USA breaks all the records because all those people watch TV. And he was having people tune in that normally didn't tune in to USA and so on and so forth. He brought his fans with him. So you look up years later, Mike Tyson goes to jail. He's the guy that my dad was trying to fight. Now this guy, Holyfield, which no one really understands or knows, has a title, and he wants the biggest payday of his life. Who's he got to call? Beat around the bush George. So with craft, my thought is if we really want to build a strong movement, we need to go to these places that, to me, are, I'll say, boxing fitness deserts, and also, but bring something special to them. When he went to the hitching post, or when he went to, what's another one of these towns? When he went to a Plano, Texas at the time, or when he went to the Cutoff in Louisiana, no one even knows where that is. They barely speak English. George Foreman came here, right? If they didn't know, they could ask around. Oh, yeah, I heard about him. There's a new, George Foreman came here. How do we create that same feeling when we open a gym in Winnipeg or Saskatchewan or Bakersfield, right? And because those are the places I want to be, but I want them to feel special. I'm not my dad. Mm-hmm. So the thought was, number one, let's focus on education because education can go anywhere. Number two, let's focus on existing facilities that already have the space that need something else, need boxing. Lastly, we need a hub for media. And so that we can say, hey, this same workout you're doing, the same bag you're hitting, the same, as a trainer, the same education you're getting, we're using it right here, right next door to Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, what's the other girl, Kylie, her sisters, I can't remember their names.
Are you getting them in here?
They're right here. Their staff come in, and Diplo's here right now. The DJ Ruckus is here right now. What's his name? The guy who did X-Files, David Duchovny trains here. But the point is, we can say, hey, you're doing the same thing they're doing. You have a piece of something special. They appreciate it. You should appreciate it. Same exact content, same workout delivered to you. And by the way, you can come check us out anytime you want. So I don't know if it's going to work or not. It's working right now.
So this is your sort of flagship store, really, Nike Town sort of thing, yeah.
And I want people to feel connected to this, so that was the vision. This is the flagship, and the people here enjoy it, you should enjoy it, and you're connected to them.
When you came up with this idea, how important was the design and the aesthetic? Because it is pretty cool, and hopefully people who are watching this on YouTube will get a glimpse of what the facility's like, or as best as possible. But what was your thinking in terms of the design, and how important was that as part of the concept?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned from Everybody Fights, and even my business partner, he was big on this. He would say 10 for 10. We're going 10 for 10. I'm like, what does that mean? I know what it means. I could actually make a list. But I was
What
like,
does
is
it
it
mean?
really 10 or 9 or whatever? But that was his saying. And but the point is, what we focused on is 2 unexpected things. We listened to the founders of Sweet Green say it in an interview, and they said, we love two unexpected things. That's cool, right? And so we started looking at like how when you walk in, how can it smell like a hotel without you knowing that we went and got this?
It does. I was sitting here and I'm smelling something. I'm thinking, is that your aftershave, George? Or there's something going on.
Well, we look for the same scents from the hotel when we can afford it, the same lotion and hand wash from a hotel. So without you knowing, you're like, what's this? Lighting, like expensive lighting. Where else would you see that? Maybe at like a ballroom, right? Not in a boxing gym. But then touches of wood floors. Where would you see that? In a boxing gym. Leather. So and then textures. We have leather, we have rope, we have chain, we have wood, we have turf, we have concrete. I think without you knowing, it stimulates your senses. So smell, light, managing light. We have garage doors, so we get a lot of sunlight. There's dark spaces, light spaces, neon lights. So you got smell, light, touch. We talked about textures. We can't, we have food. But the last thing is, I was talking to a gentleman today, and he was like, I absolutely effing love it, asterisks. And I was like, why? Why do you like it so much? Because he never goes to gyms. He's a coder. And he said, I like the facility because there's so much going on. It stimulates me. He actually said it without me prompting him. But he said the most important thing is nice people. And so all the people who started this particular facility with me have been working with me for no less than 6 years, some as long as 10 years. And I was able to ask them to come. I didn't beg them or recruit them or poach them or anything like that. Say, hey, if you would like to come, come. And the best of a group of 200 people that I worked with every day, the top 6 came here. And so the people, was it easy to say, hey, let's all uproot and move to Calabasas? No, it wasn't easy. We had to invest. But on the other side of that is an environment that no one can recreate in this area. We're not putting job posts on Indeed and saying like, hey, make minimum wage, and we're investing in people. And we believe on the other side of it, we'll have something truly unique that no one can replicate.
How do you scale that? As someone who employs a lot of people myself, it was fairly easy when we were all in one town. You could kind of go, and even though we're in different offices, you could meet people, you could create that culture. As we grew and we were in different countries, that became quite difficult.
Yeah.
Obviously, with your concept, you are doing things in Canada and other plans in the future. How are you going to sort of maintain that same experience? Because it is very much if you guys weren't here, and it's a beautiful building, but the energy wouldn't be the same at the end of the day. How are you going to create that as you take it, beyond these 4 walls?
Yeah, I think what I'll say about that is I'm a little bit of a broken record. In the past, our last interview, I was able to reflect on things that I was doing in real time that were working for me at scale. Doing 1,500 classes a day was a big deal for me. And I felt I could scale it, right? Because I had them going on in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, upstate New York, Boston, Philly, and all that. I felt like we could replicate that. What I'm going to tell you now is a hope, right? I just really believe that if we invest in great people and take our time and think in terms of what should we be doing for the next 10 years, that we'll be able to take our time and focus on one great trainer at a time. I think it'll work. And I think, number 2, when we focus on trainers, we're not just making them great trainers, we're making them great teachers that can teach others. And that's our approach. So I think, yes, are the next 2 to 3 years going to move slow? Absolutely. The following 3 years and the following 3 years, I think exponentially. There's other models for that. They call it religion.
Which your father's very success was probably the wrong word, but built quite a following, I guess.
Yeah, there's evangelism, and I think some did it for the wrong reason. He did it for the right reason. But one of the most scary things, if you look at history, was the Christian religion, because there was this belief, and I'm not talking about me and my religion or anyone's religion, but that where 3 are gathered, there's something going on. We call that church, right? And that's all you needed. That can grow like a weed, right? And so much that they say, and I don't know if this is true, that Constantine said, you know what, I'm down. I'm one of you guys. I got to control this, right? But the point is keeping it that nimble. And so for me, the way we scale it is great people, and then showing them how to create a great experience anywhere. If you pat somebody on the back and they're sweaty and they have their gloves and they're like, I didn't think I can do that, and I feel awesome, You can do that in a park. You can do that in a church. You can do that in a school, a football field. You can do that in someone's home. You can do it in a luxury building. You can do it on a BJJ, a jet. You can do that anywhere. I can do that myself. Every trainer in here can do that. We don't need a gym for that.
Is there a downside to that, though? It's not. It's expensive to develop that and to invest in people. Yeah. And I suppose is there an equal challenge where people are like, yeah, I can just do this myself in the park, and then you're constantly trying to recruit. How do you keep that loyalty, I suppose, with your trainers and the clients at the same time?
I think consistency, showing support. Like, yes, of course you can do it on your own. But what happens when you need a helping hand? What happens when your classes are not full? You need someone to make sure if someone's searching for boxing in Shreveport that you pop up first, right? What happens when you're like, yo, I've been doing this for a lot. I'm making the money I make, but I need insurance. Like, who do you call? And I think we want to be that type of company for people long term. And there's going to be people that come and go. That's fine. There's going to be some good trainers. I'm sorry, there's going to be a few bad ones. But when you have 3,000 or 4,000, everybody will be like, you did a bad job of delivering the craft experience because we saw what it looks like on Instagram and on YouTube. And all the other trainers, I'm telling. And then they can write a
The community
review.
Manages it itself.
But you can't grow too fast.
Yeah.
I do know that, and I believe everything I'm telling you. Yeah. I think it'll work.
With your target demographic, I'll be interested to hear how you define it because...
And they're all going to need T-shirts.
And they're going to... Yeah. You on your business proposal or franchise proposal, you talk about being a diverse group of boxers bound together by passionate trainers. I know I've cut it a little bit short, but how do you, when you go into a town or a city or wherever, how do you decide who to target? Or is it more about people with a similar belief system and all kinds of ages and demographics? How do you look at the person that you want to go after to walk in the door?
For members?
Yeah, from a member's perspective.
We don't advertise, but we do boost our post, right? We just get our content in front of as many people as possible and just say, here's what we're doing. And that's it. Most of our focus is getting people to our social channels to look at what we're doing. If they want to click and follow through and sign up, that's up to them. Other than that, it's one person at a time and making sure, like, everybody raves about this. And it's not for everybody, by the way. Some people walk in there like, nah, I'm just going to go sit in my corner at Equinox, or like, I love Orange Theory. That's fine, and I root for them, right? But some people are like, this is for me, and making sure we support those people.
How do you probably a different way of putting it is how do you know what language to talk to? Like I've sort of followed Gary Vee quite a bit, and funny enough, he has a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. Yeah. And so with what a lot of stuff he talks about, it's making that sort of relevance to your audience. Yeah. Are you sort of not niched down into, well, this is the type of person? How do you communicate in a way that resonates with?
I can tell you right now,
yeah.
We're horrible at it. We're horrible at it. I say it all the time, and it's always been the case with me. How do I explain to people what it feels like when you're in the building, what the experience is like, what the people are like? It feels impossible, right? So I just don't think about it, and I just try to put what we're doing in front of as many people as possible and just be who we are and hope it works out. That's actually the truth. It really is the truth. And like, I try to like wordsmith promos and all that. It's really hard. So I'm like, let's just be authentic, take our time, run a good business, and wait. Yeah. That's really it for me.
And is that something that you'll, over time, if you progress it at the right speed, you'll get those learnings and figure out how to navigate that as you start to scale? And
yeah, I think you start to learn how to connect with people and like what works, like being able to tell people like it's everything except what happens in the ring. Those are little moments for people. But honestly, the times have changed. Like there was a time where we could say you could box, run, lift, all for one gym membership and boom, 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 and no contract. And people were like, cool, I'm attracted because you're differentiated. Authentic boxing was like a buzz term, right? And no matter this gym, no matter how I say all these trainers are real boxers, we teach authentic boxing. My dad was a boxer, I was a boxer. People still walk in and say, is this real boxing? Because everybody screwed it up. Yeah. Right? And I'm not going to mention names because I also root for them because they get people throwing punches, but people go in those places looking for authentic boxing experiences and they don't get them, and then they think we're going to trick them as well. So I think it's just and then the last thing is like Facebook is tanking. And you know why? Because ads don't work anymore. Twitter, having a hard time. You know why? Ads don't work anymore. I could go on. Ads are like a penance for not telling your story and being authentic. And unless you have $7 million every quarter, you know? So I think if you don't have that, you just got to be real. We got to do it a little bit differently. Those days are gone.
Is it in some cases, and I spoke to someone a little while ago.
Marketing and all that, it's gone.
Yeah, is it almost like back to old-fashioned word of mouth and slowly building your...
And it's scary and I don't like it. I prefer the old-fashioned, but I think you just got to be real. You got to say, like, this might not be for you. So you got to spend a little bit less and take your time. That's what I believe, at least.
With that, my community is obviously key, and I know you use that terminology a lot. How do you create a strong community, and how have you done that here in a short space of time? And I have to admit that even my wife had worked on this project with you for a very long time, and
thank you guys so much.
And she was telling me about it, and until I came here, I didn't even get. It was totally different to what I expected. Yeah. But how have you been able to successfully create that community?
Yeah, the community is hard because they're so delicate. And I think, look, I'm not a master, but I constantly remembering to give the people who are in the building right now all my attention and show that the other people who are working with me see me do that and do the same thing. I think that's number one. That couldn't be more important. Living the lifestyle couldn't be more important. Creating fun, smiles, laughter. It's just like there's no handbook on that, you know? So I think I'm going to go back to, honestly, with community, it's got to be the people you work with. They got to feel like your brothers and sisters, uncles, children, fathers, mothers. Like, you got to create, your staff has to be a family, and there can't be turnover. And most gym operators I speak to, they're like, we need trainers, but they actually say, I hate trainers. They use those words. Trainers are so hard to deal with. Turnover, how do you deal with that? They don't appreciate it. They say things like they overvalue themselves. They always want more. They're lazy. They say all this stuff about trainers. And I'm like, how's that working for you? So that, right? And I didn't recruit anybody in this facility. The 2 people who work here that haven't worked with me for 6 to 10 years walked in here over and over, and I finally said, all right, because you're persistent. So I think you have to select for character and invest in people and do not let them go. Don't. Just think long term. It works, but it's short-sightedness will make you treat trainers like Uber. And just that those days are also over.
Yeah. What do you with the education side what are you doing differently in terms of your training and programming that you're running here and I guess scaling to other facilities?
Just hard. Like, you can fail. You can fail and have your money back. You can actually just fail and not get the certification. Our program for people that get educated is part virtual, part in person. And once you purchase it or pay for it, or even if I give it to you for free, or your gym pays for it, when I fail you can keep trying. But if you don't want to keep trying and failing and get over the hump, then I don't want you. Because I know what's going to happen, you know? You're going to go to a gym, it's not going to work out, your first 3 weeks are going to be tough, and you're going to teeter off. And now forget the fact that there may have been some revenue there. We wasted our time. And so I think it's making it hard, not making it easy, and selecting for people who want to invest in themselves and spend the time and push past a little bit of failure.
Right.
And if they don't want to humble themselves to learn a program that could help them make a living for themselves, we don't want them. It's okay to say that. That's our attitude.
Looking on some of your social media pages, it seems as though you're a big Web 3.0 advocate and quite digitally minded. I was looking at one of your pages. I didn't even know what you're talking about on some of the stuff there. Is that something that you're bringing into this business, whether in terms of education or connecting with clients? How are you bringing that part of your passion into this?
Yeah, Web3 is the future of membership businesses, businesses that have an element that's kind of like all real estate transactions should use blockchain. All when you buy a car or transfer what do you call it for auto? A deed or not a deed?
Title?
The title, blockchain. I think all banking should be done through blockchain. It's way more efficient. I could go on and on, but for membership businesses, absolutely. it's just a great way. And I think I won't go into the detail, but if you're in the gym business and you're not looking at how to leverage blockchain right now, you're nuts. You're nuts. Just read about it, dip your toe in it, you know? Like right now, people don't even know because I don't have time to promote it because people wouldn't even understand it. Like you can buy a membership to our gym on an Ethereum platform on OpenSea, right? And it's $3,000, membership for life. It's the best deal, right?
Just nobody knows how to figure it out.
You can buy it and then sell it to a friend for more, right? And no one can figure it out. But we're just trying to make sure, like, when everybody wakes up and says, oh, we're like, yep, we're ready, right? So I'll leave it there, but I could go on and on. I think letting your community make decisions and being able to benefit from it and them feeling ownership when you're like, should we close down or should we open and all that, you can use blockchain technology for that. Say, hey, let's vote. What should the price be? Should we raise it? Should we not? What classes should we have? The same platform where they can process their payments. You can use they can vote with, you know? Or, hey guys, we had a great year because you guys stuck with us and invited your friends. Here's $20 to go towards your membership every month for the next year. You can do that with blockchain by pressing a button. Try doing that with Stripe, you know? So I'll stop there, but that's why I'm so fascinated by it. And I just want to make sure, like, I'm not behind.
With the business model, like what's your, after this location, and I also understand you've got a franchise agreement in Canada with Good Life.
Yeah.
What other expansion plans have you got? And tell us also a little bit about the sort of gym in gym concept that you're going to be rolling out.
Two focuses. If you want to put, I think the future of big box gyms are putting branded boutique experiences in their gym. I'll always believe that. And I think everybody will be saying it pretty soon. I've been saying it for 10 years. And I want to be the person you call for boxing. We're not cheap, you know, because it takes money to do it right. But if you're looking at, can I get my money back and make profit in the next 2 to 3 years and retain my members and not lose them to the guy down the street, then it's cheap, right? So that's our Box and Box program. You just give us a space. We build it. We do the construction set. We train the trainers. We send you everything. We work with your construction team to make sure it's on spec. We show up to inspect it. Once your trainers are certified, we show up to train them and make sure they have confidence teaching in that room. We're really hands-on, and then it's yours. And that's that program. I'm pumped about that because I think once people stop being so penny-wise, they'll realize the value there, and we'll be ready, right? And we've been fortunate enough to have a relationship with Good Life. It's the fourth largest gym operator in the world. So we can just focus on them for the time being. So that's that. What I'm equally excited about, potentially even more, right? How do different levels of excitement is being able to, if a gym says, look, I don't have space, I don't have $250,000 to invest in a beautiful boutique facility, I don't have all these things, but I have people that want to box and I want to be able to service them with the turnkey solution to say we offer boxing, call me. We'll send a trainer there that we have a relationship with, that we vouch for. All you have to do is show up, use mitts, right? Maybe a jump rope, maybe a sandbag, maybe some of your equipment, and we're gonna create a great boxing experience, small group, 6 people to 1 trainer, because I think that's like the threshold at which the experience becomes hard without a classroom. And you can charge at your front desk for it, we can charge on our platform. It's kind of like Class Pass for boxing fitness, essentially. But the main thing is once a gym operator says yes, sign waivers, trainer comes in, teaches class, goes home, members have a great experience, and we're done. Making it that simple, because I think if we do a really good job of that, there's no reason for anybody to say, no, we don't want this in our facility, because we only need 400 square feet to execute that experience. And as we know, in this industry, there's a lot of unutilized excess inventory when we speak of space. That I'm so excited for. It would be like if Zumba said, all the booking goes to our platform, trainer shows up, teaches a class, and we send you a check. Who says no to that if you don't want to invest in the program? So I think we're going to continue to incubate it, make sure it works right here regionally. We're going to test it with our partners in Canada, and hopefully we'll roll out Q3 of next year.
Any plans to go international, Europe, Middle East, Asia, anywhere?
Australia will be first.
Right.
Sorry, next, because we're in Canada. And then outside of that, I think we need local partners. And I think our international exposure will be generated by local partners that we can trust. So if someone said, hey, the UAE, like we have the perfect partner for you to work with to help you connect translate what you do and know, and also work with all the different gym operators and understand the culture, we would go there. If someone said, hey, we're going to Germany because there's a partner, I'm going to buy as partners. So I hope we can find them quickly.
Well, hopefully some of them are listening to this podcast. And so if they are, where do they find out about what you're doing?
I answer if you're on Instagram, George Foreman on Instagram, basically, crapboxing.com, and there's a text line. I look at it every day. My phone number is 832-405-9075. The point is, I'm front and center, and we're a hands-on team, and Crap Boxing on all social channels are George Foreman III.
Right. What drives you now then, George?
My people. Like, I think, I always put myself last, which is fine. But it just seeing the people I'm working with, who are my partners, seeing them go from getting financial success, emotional success, building their families, which I'm in the process of doing right now, seeing them do that while we're building a business and not leave and feeling respected and growing into leaders, like that drives me. And it's a weird thing to say. It sounds like I'm trying to act like I'm the creator of all this, and I'm not. I'm working side by side with them, but being there for them and making sure that, at the end of the day, they don't feel like they've devoted everything to this company and we won, and they're like, all right, what do I do next? That there's going to be a future for them in and outside the gym. That's my biggest responsibility.
What scares you, if anything?
I think, people, I think the media competing with social media. Social media is all about clickbait, snippets, short, forget the context. Just watch this and hope you sit on it for a second and get likes. The algorithm feeds it, puts it in front of more people. You like this because you're bored. We're gonna put lots of stuff in front of you, but forget the reality. Forget the 3-minute video, the 5-minute video, the 10-minute video that gives you the truth. That's fine, that's social media, love it. It's helped us, market. But when the media, these people who went to school for journalism and reading and writing, and they're super literate, and they actually read and listen to all this stuff, but then they have to compete with social media and go like this, because they know people are gonna respond and stop on the channel, they're all struggling. That scares me. That scares me. And the advertisers are having a hard time too, because it's hard, advertising is performing as well, so I'm sure they're scared too. But I'm just scared of the effect it's gonna have on everyone long term. So let's just get everybody boxing.
How do you, good answer.
If they're throwing punches, they're not on their phone.
How do you unwind and recharge? I know you spend a lot of your time, or nearly all of your time here, so your wife says.
Honestly, sobriety. Not drinking, not smoking, eating well, tea, E3 Live, taking care of myself, getting 8 hours of sleep, not ignoring stress, but managing it. That's it.
Good. So you don't drink at all, never? No, that's good.
I have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And I know the difference.
Yeah.
But I think otherwise, discipline. You get burnt out without discipline. And I've been very undisciplined, not just talking about my personal life, but in business and everything. I've been undisciplined and before, right? And when I'm not disciplined, I burn out. So it really is just discipline. I feel like a bolt of lightning when I'm disciplined. So that's what it's all about for me. It's like a word we don't talk about anymore.
Yeah, I've been the same this year. I've been pretty much off alcohol, and it's a discipline not to do it, and because it's so easy and accepted and that. But forcing yourself not to do it, it's amazing how much
it's tough.
More you can. Yeah, it is tough, but it's amazing how much more you can do with that time and energy and that even that sort of mental. I guess it reinforces positive stuff in your brain, and you seem to be able to do so much more. I certainly have. It's been a
you notice the difference, right?
Absolutely.
Especially you're athletic and you're in shape, you probably notice it way quicker than other people do.
Even my wife's I'm cleaning the house, I'm doing stuff. I'm looking for things to do, which is not that I'm not a productive person, but you've almost got. I've found I've got at least 20% more in what I do for whatever reason, which is quite strange.
If you're living clean, right? Super clean. And then my daughter, the thought of her losing me early in my life, at 45, at 50, I actually can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
So it could happen, right? But the fact that I had to do everything I could to be able to see her through her second child, maybe, or whatever she decides to do, to the point where she's like, doesn't even want to take my phone call anymore. I want to see her to the point where she's like, Dad, and I have to beg her to call me. I need to be healthy for that. And I also think we're going to be able to live past 100 pretty soon with modern technology, and I don't want to like die before that happens.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So
hang on a minute.
There's my motivation. Sorry.
Final question then. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you believed is impossible, made it, and gone on to make it possible. When creating this chapter in your life and your business life, what would be a memorable example of escaping your own personal limits?
Oh, yeah, forgiving. There's been recently people in my life, one or two people that I had to just forgive. And it's one thing to say, I forgive you, it's okay, don't worry about it. You can say that, but to like check yourself when you're walking, when you're watching TV, when you're thinking about it, and you still love that person, that's not easy. And so that has been my greatest accomplishment, is being able to truly forgive them, not because they need it or they deserve it or it's like, here's a gift, but I can't walk around with that weight and do the things I need to do. I can't focus on helping other people do what they need to do and like smiling and being like, hey, this boxing lifestyle can make you like me, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't do that if I'm walking around with the weight of holding things against people, right? And sometimes I could be wrong about it. Can you imagine being wrong and hating somebody and they're right?
Yeah.
And you're walking around with that weight? So I think forgiving people and not trying to ask myself who's right or wrong, just saying, let's let this go, has been the biggest example of me escaping my limits.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. George Foreman, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.